Hello all.
Oh,
Hello. Good
oh,
morning.
hello, morning,
Good evening,
morning.
everyone. Thank you so much for joining.
How are
We
you?
will good. We will start in a minute or so. So
Thank you too.
thank you so much. So good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are. We are glad to have some of you, many of you who have joined us. I am very excited to be back for the third episode or the third in this series of Restore Her Rights. Today, we'll focus on the real world experience of women and communities, like we did in our second webinar as well, who are leading gender-led, gender inclusive restoration efforts. So, before that, this overall webinar series seeks to evaluate the role of women in ecosystem restoration by one, showcasing women's leadership by highlighting women-led and gender-inclusive restoration initiatives that contribute to community conservation, biodiversity conservation, and sustainable land management. The second objective of the larger series itself is to address gender barriers, which explore systematic challenges that women face, such as unequal land tenure, limited access to resources, and restricted participation in decision making, while identifying pathways for inclusive and equitable solutions. The third is by examining policy frameworks, which includes the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration, the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, the UNCCD to assess their role in promoting gender-responsive restoration. The fourth one is looking at the strengthening of gender responsive approaches overall. It's through sharing strategy, sharing insights, sharing these case studies, sharing the various examples that are emerging that integrates gender perspective into practices and policies. And overall, this is to continue these conversations, keep them in everyone's memories, so that these dialogues become a pathway to some kind of change in the future. Now, this session will feature powerful stories of resilience and leadership from women who either belong to Indigenous people or local communities or are organizations that work with the Indigenous people and local communities. Through these narratives, we will explore the challenges they face, the successes they have achieved in restoring ecosystems, and the session also distill key lessons on how embedding gender equality in restoration efforts can enhance community resilience, safeguard biodiversity, and build pathways to more just and sustainable futures. So before we begin, let me go over a few housekeeping rules. Please keep your microphones muted throughout the session to avoid any disruption and to ensure our speakers are heard clearly. The second is that we are offering live interpretation in French and Spanish. You can access this by clicking the globe icon at the bottom of your screen, which you see on the right-hand side, and selecting your preferred language. Then we also have live streaming. So this is being streamed live on YouTube and will remain available afterwards. So if you know anyone who couldn't attend today, please feel free to share the link with them at a later stage. We do have a dedicated question answer session after the panel. So you're welcome to post your question at any time during the session in the Q&A box. You don't need to wait towards the end. And we finally want to know where you are joining us from and what you do. So please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. It's a great way for all of us to connect. So quickly jumping into now some background on the Restore Her Right initiative. We created this initiative with four objectives in mind. Well, the first one is to promote rights to access tenure rights, the rights to engage meaningfully, and advocate for these policies and programs at various levels. The second one is to celebrate by highlighting and amplifying some of the wonderful examples of women-led restoration and conservation processes that bring forth the evidence of the need to include women in all kinds of possible spaces, including the decision-making spaces. We hope to also use the Restore Her Rights to find collaborations, and we see that already happening through these webinars, and we hope that you find your space. And also at the end, build a collective way to empower each other and bring all of us together to move forward. Four pillars or the four overall activities or pillars that we would say is built on four core components. The first is the advocacy hub, where we continue to campaign and build partnership that challenge dominant narratives and push for women's inclusion in global restoration dialogues. The second one is evidence and storytelling. We want to gather real stories and not just anecdotal, but grounded, lived experiences. And these stories show that gender responsive restoration is not just theoretical, it's happening right now. The third one is in the community exchange platform, which is a space for members of the Restore Her Rights community to share, learn, and collaborate. By connecting practitioners, researchers, and community members, we hope to create opportunities for cross learning and support. And the fourth one is a learning resource center, where we are developing a centralized hub for resources on gender and restoration. This will be useful for those just starting out as well as those who are already working in this space. It's also a space for contributors to share their work. Ultimately, the goal is to build a community of practice, a network of people and organizations working together to promote gender responsive ecosystem restoration. So we invite everyone here to sign on, participate, contribute to this growing community. We will share the link on the chat box for the sign up to Restore Her Rights Initiative. Together, let's restore both the earth and her rights. Uh, with with that, I would like to start and introduce the wonderful panel of speakers we have today. And our first speaker is going to be 𝗀cie. 𝗀cie is a member of the Northeast Network based in Chisami village. He has 20 years of experience working with grassroots communities of Nagaland, particularly women, in mobilizing, organizing, awareness raising, capacity building, research, documentation, advocacy. She's also a primary school teacher, which I've seen in a lot of introductions when I was Googling her. Kind of seems stalkerish, but she is incredible, and I'm glad to have 𝗀cie here with us today. Thank you, 𝗀cie, for joining us, and I hand over the space to you. Hold on.
Yeah, thank you, 𝗀cie, for the wonderful opportunity to share um, something that we do here in a part of the world. I will be sharing a little bit about the region. I'm speaking from Nagaland, that is part of the northeastern India region, which you see in the map, the highlighted in red. And we are 8 states. The region is known for various reasons. One is it is one of the biodiversity hotspot of the world. And the region is also known for a biocultural rich region. It has more than 200 ethnic groups inhabited in the region. It is also geopolitically located, bordering different countries, and this has also made our region one of the most militarized region of the world. So that's something about the northeastern region. And as I have shared that, it has more than 200 ethnic groups living in the region. And for generations, the local communities in the northeastern region have long coexisted with their biodiversity, which is deeply intertwined with cultural, spiritual, and ecological significance. But saying all this, there are also emerging challenges which we see today. And I will not go into the details of the challenges that we face, but some of the key things are, environmental degradation because of, the way production is emphasized, and also, because of the climate crisis, because of, the conflict. So there are many challenges that has emerged from the region. I will be speaking today on behalf of Northeast Network. Northeast Network was established in 1995 with a vision to build a society that upholds gender justice, equality, and respect for all. And NEN is dedicated to strengthening women's agencies in Northeastern region with a direct and active presence and engagement in Assam, Meghalaya, and Nagaland. And we work around both thematic areas, which is gender-based violence against women and girls, natural resource regeneration, governance and state accountability, and livelihoods and resilience. Today, my talk will be emphasized on the small work that we do in Nagaland, that is the state where I am from, but across Northeast Network. What we have been doing and we have been emphasizing is to see that, we support women's leadership, we support women's voice and the agencies, and enabling them to come together to make collective decisions and actions. So I will be sharing something where, especially on today's theme, restore her rights. And here what we have been following, or what we have what we have been doing is that, if we want to start something or to facilitate something, we have to acknowledge the women's knowledge contribution to biodiversity, food system, nutrition, livelihood, and climate resilience. Indigenous women possess, invaluable traditional knowledge, which is critical for biodiversity conservation strategies. And by integrating the knowledge and empowering women as leaders in biodiversity conservation, in restoring ecosystems, we can enhance environmental sustainability while also promoting gender equity. So I will be sharing two stories from our work, which is, the one is the 𝗀cie𝗰𝗶 Community Seed Bank. This is a women-led initiative that the women of 𝗀cie𝗰𝗶 has started conserving, gathering, documenting the indigenous, traditional indigenous seeds. And they have started this work, and they have started to conserve and promote seed diversity. And they have been, actively since its inception, they have been actively engaged in sharing education and advocacy, seed production of pest repellents, natural fertilizers, etc. At the same time, this group of women who also voice their concern on, the fertilizer, the chemical fertilizers that is slowly creeping into the community, and they have come together, they have raised their voice, and they have even stopped uh, such kind of, destructive chemicals to come into their community. They have raised this issue in the council, in the village council, that is the local governance, and they were able to do it. And this was possible when they come together and when they have gone from household to household awareness campaign and finally put in that in the traditional village, institution, the governance institution. And that is something that, like this 𝗙់་cia𝗰 Women Health, 𝗙់◰ Women's Society, they have also initiated different things, but particularly this seed bank is something that we can learn from, because this is also a way to fight climate crisis. This is also a way to fight, big corporates. This is also a way to see that food is secured for the community, for the family today, and also in the days to come. And they have so far, like gathered or documented so far around 156 indigenous seeds. Some are already lost, but they have brought back again. And this is something that I wanted to share with you all. The next is, the 𝗀𝗹𝗶𝗶 Millet Sisters Collective. And they have their, self-employed women association of 𝗀𝗹 district. 𝗀𝗹 district is in the eastern part of Nagaland, where the women farmers, where the women, home-based workers, they came together and they have formed a collective, and they have started to revive millet-based agro-biodiverse farming again. And they have also initiated collective farming again, where the village women came together and they have started doing, farming together and exchanging knowledge, and also trying to see that, that food that they grow it reaches their family, it reaches their local market, and also they are also, providing local food, healthy food to even urban Nagaland. And these women groups have also used this platform to be part of the tribal council, to be part of the village governance, and they were able to revive that, like the last few years that we have seen that there is an increase of growing local food. There's increase of, genetic diversity that used to be there, and but slowly, decreasing due to various reasons. So these women farmers have also managed to go and approach the government for, technologies, for, even like securing millet machines, and also like organizing local market for the women, for the farmers. And they have also started, value addition programs and all. So these are the two case studies that I was wanting to share with you. And, our journey continues. We really have to do many more things. But one important, thing is that, women's voice, women's knowledge, if we put into the center, then we will see a more sustainable approach to ecosystem restoration. So thank you.
Thank you, Seno. I think that was wonderful to also highlight the fact that restoration is more than just planting trees. It's also restoring food systems and indigenous knowledge and traditional knowledge. And a lot of it is something that women hold. So I think these are critical and something that we often forget when we talk about restoration, and policies often forget that these are also critical when we are addressing restoration processes. So thank you for reminding us that. And um, it's truly inspiring what Northeast Network, and especially in 𝗙്◰ the examples that are happening with the seed banks. And we hope that this becomes inspiration for several other members who have joined us to kind of take inspiration from this work. Thank you, Seno. With that, we are going to the second speaker today. Who do we have Maria? Do we have Maria? Maria, if you can unmute and say hello. Maria?
I'm here.
Oh, perfect. Amazing. So we are gonna fly all the way to Tanzania now after Seno showed us that little work in the northeast part of India. And we have Maria, who is a Tanzanian lawyer and leading advocate for gender equality, climate justice, and human rights. She is the co-founder of Women's Action Towards Economic Development and the Foundation for Access to Justice for Women and Girls in Prisons, organizations through which she advances legal empowerment, reproductive rights, and the elimination of violence against women and girls. Maria, thank you for being here today, and I hand over the space to you.
Thank you. Apologies for traveling all around Tanzania to find this Maria. I was on the way and I was on safari actually. So I was trying to do some few official issues which are still pending. So I'm with Nepaya, the one that her story was shared. I'll just give a brief and then I'll invite her to speak maybe for 3 minutes and then I'll translate because she is much more comfortable to speak in a language or Kiswahili. So as it has been introduced as Women Action Towards Economic Development, we're working with women rights organizations, community organizations, community-based organizations, but also we are much now engaged with policymakers from the village level to the national level, really championing the conversation around gender and inclusion of women's leadership, but also women participation in all aspects of environment, climate, adaptation and mitigation of land, climate, and such issues. So we work across the country and we're working with partners in all regions as we are conveners as well of feminist climate justice movement, but also we are founders, co-founders, and hosts of the Coalition for Gender and Climate Change. So we have members organization across the country and in Ireland, that is Zanzibar. And with that now give us a leeway of enhancing our conversations around land restoration, the campaigns such as 10 for Our Land campaign, whereas we are participating in campaigns across the region, but also we are working with those women and girls in rural communities to really ensure their voices are heard, but also they are able to participate in these conversations. So for today's discussion, really for us as WATED, but also personally, it's very crucial and important in so many different dimensions, and specifically on the area that we are seeing increasing investment, whereas women are being reallocated on their natural land, and this land are usually very virgin land for agriculture, fertile rather, but also the colonialization and the history behind patriarchal and all those still indigenous community and women generally and girls are still facing the challenges that are lining along patriarchal and colonialism. And after starting the first campaign for us as what it was, there was land rights for women, and it was in regions that were in coastal region and highland regions of Tanzania. But then with that campaign, we realized it was beyond land rights for women. It was so much systemical issues that needs to be tackled and responded collectively, and not just by WATED as an organization, but through partnership and engagement with other actors. So past 3 years, we have started to navigate the indigenous communities, and we are working with other actors who are much more versed squarely on indigenous women and girls, such as in Arusha, Roliondo, Kiteto, and such areas. And for us, WATED, we are basically in 2 regions that are not much yet in further engaged with women and girls with our indigenous nature. So in Migoli, the area that we are working, and another region in Morogoro, we we realized the impact of climate change is very evident, but also patriarchal and land issues were very much crucial. And because they have their tradition and practices, our engagement was to really empower the communities, women and girls themselves, to really understand what is in our constitution, which is the backbone of all the rights and the basic duties of citizens. But also, what does traditions and practices harm and hinder their realization and engagement and fulfillment of their rights? So in Migoli, seeing the readiness of women and girls, specifically girls, and part of that was child marriage as well, was very rampant. But then drought and food system was not much intertwined or interlinked in a sense that their projects were implemented. So maybe before I proceed, Nepaya will speak a little. What is it that we started to do in Migoli? And I'll take it from there just to also share the example.
Takwenya, Keyadoi. Kwa majina naitwa Nepaya, nimetokea Migoli kwenye kikundi cha hamasisha grupu. Kikundi chetu kinajihusisha kulima alizeti kwa kutumia mbolea asilia na tunatunza mbegu za asili na miti ya asili kwa ajili ya dawa. Na pia tunajishughulisha kwa kuunga mifuko kwa kutumia miti ya asili, lakini pia tunapambana kukemea mila potofu ambazo zipo kwenye kabila letu ambazo zinatugandamiza sisi kama wanawake. Lakini pia kitu ambacho tunapata changamoto kule ni ukame ambao tukipanda miti mingine kwa ajili ya matunda na kwa ajili ya dawa, miti mingine inakauka. Kwa shida ni kwamba kuna ukame kwetu. Asante.
Okay, so she started to greet you by her own language, Takwenya, and also she appreciates to be given a platform. Is a first experience. But then she alluded the challenges that they are facing, the drought, which is very critical in their area, but also harmful practices and traditions that are rampant in their area. But also she mentioned their cultivating sunflower using traditional seeds, but also now, past last year, they've started to preserve natural seeding, specifically for sunflower, and using manure, cow dung, because they are also pastoralists. So they have numerous cattle, and women actually are the ones who are caretakers for the family. So that's what she said. But also she said that the fact that it's a very dry region that derail their progress as they're planting trees and preserving the nature by using natural trees and using rain harvesting water to continue the projects that they're doing. But because they do not drill water as from the ground, the rain season, if it's short rain season and they do not have much well drainages, it really do not allow them to support the projects that they're doing. So this is the side of Migoli, but also we are working with another woman. Unfortunately, I didn't prepare pictures. They're in 𝗙𝗻𝗃. This is region in Morogoro. And this one now is different from Migoli. Migoli is very drought, but in 𝗙𝗃, they are having the challenge of flooding. When it rains, it really floods because they are in wetland, and most of women, they are agriculturalists. So they are using traditional methods to cultivate in areas during the rain season and to move away from river banks, because they used to cultivate beside the river banks so that they can get access of water. But also, I think the land is much more arid. Maybe it had fertile along those areas. But the other thing that they've started to use past 5 years is to engage a collective of women to find alternative of restoring their land by reducing amount of land they use for agriculture, and now starting to use beekeeping. So they harvest honey through the forests to keep the forests, to reduce amount of cutting trees for charcoal, but also to reduce amount of land that is taken away for agriculture and find alternative to preserve the land while also they're able to sustain their livelihood. So I was to share these two examples for now, and if I'll have time, maybe I will proceed to talk more. Oh, slow down. Sorry.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you so much. I should have mentioned that before you began. It was wonderful to have heard you. Unfortunately, I hope the interpretation the interpreters were able to catch most of what you and 𝗙𝗵𝗹 had to say, but it is so critical what you've shared. The fact that impact of climate change is the heaviest on women, and it's just that even then, in the face of reality of what we face today with climate change, there have been several examples of women innovating and adapting and finding resilient ways through the indigenous and traditional knowledge that they've held for so long, including the seed banks that 𝗀់had talked about, the example of sunflower seeds and fruit trees and rainwater harvesting, and the fact that you also shared the two examples of climate change, of one where it's severely drought prone and the one where it's flooding, shows that communities are constantly facing and fighting the impacts of biodiversity loss and climate change, and yet they are still being resilient and following through, and they are continuing to conserve and protect and restore the landscapes that they're part of through the knowledge that they hold and take it forward. Thank you, 𝗙𝗵𝗹. Thank you, Maria. For
Thank
everyone,
you.
we do stay around. For everyone, we do have a question answer round. So after this panel, but you can continue asking your questions in the chat box, and we will take it all towards the end. Once we have the last speaker today, who will get to now, who will be sharing. So now we have the last speaker, and now we're gonna. It's incredible how Zoom lets us travel all over the world and at the comfort of your own four walls. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but we are gonna fly to the south of India now, where we have 𝗺𝗲𝗓, who is the technical coordinator with the climate change program of Keystone Foundation with an academic knowledge in biology. Her work focuses on climate solutions, particularly gender-just approaches. She is deeply committed to working on the ground, where hands-on experience provides her with valuable insight and continuous learning. Thank you, 𝗺𝗲𝗓, for joining, and I will give the space to you.
Yeah, thank you, Shruti. Thank you. I'm audible, right?
Yes, loud
Yeah.
and clear.
Okay, so before, it's very pleasure to be here, and like 𝗀𝗍 and like Maria talked many experience. So, but then like for me, I'm like a beginner who has started my career, and like for me, before starting the presentation, I would like explain what Keystone's works in Nilgiris. So, as Shruti was mentioning, now I'll be mostly talking about the works Keystone has been doing in Nilgiris, which is in South India. So, talking about Keystone Foundation, it mainly works with indigenous people around Nilgiris Biosphere Reserve. So it is like distributed across 3 states, Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. So we have like different programs which focuses mainly on community well-being, climate change, then biodiversity conservation, and then people and PNCP, which is people and nature collectives. So for me, I'm working in climate change program, especially in a gender just climate solution, which is called analog forestry. So I'll be explaining my experience in implementing analog forestry as a solution in Sigur. So Sigur comes under Mudumalai Tiger Reserve, which is a protected area in Tamil Nadu. So our approach to Sigur is like to give a solution which will be helpful to the women promoters there. So analog forestry was an idea which was proposed by International Analog Forestry Network, which is in Sri Lanka, and Dr. Renil Senanayak has proposed this idea on like uh, mimicking the natural forest by its structure. But like when you talk about restoration, mostly it will be like, you'll choose a space, and then you will plant a species which are native to that particular land. But then here one of the difference that we could see is our approach is like, okay, we are going to the farmers, asking them, okay, this is particular idea of analog forestry where you can mimic a natural forest in its structure, but also which will give you an economically productive landscape. So our approach is like, okay, we have like 12 principles which we follow while implementing the analog forestry network. So before going to the principle, I'll just explain what is the context of Sigur. So Sigur is a rain shadow region where like the rain is very less, and as we have done a baseline with the promoters and farmers there, what we have understood is like the indigenous farmers were doing agriculture like before 10 years or 20 years back. But now, as there are like different other pressures like climate change and other pressures, will be like most of the women's are like there is this called microfinance, where they had like committed to pay, like a weekly basis they have to pay some amount to this particular microfinance. So there is like a financial stress where they have to earn something. So most of them has come out of the farming, and then most of them are moving to traditional, I mean, wage labor, mainly in construction work or like going to a different landscape. So all these are the challenges that we see here. So what we are doing is basically we are working with 10 women promoters in Sigur. So this is like a pilot study that we are doing, and we have completed like almost 2 years. And then I'll just share how, like, what are the learnings by doing this particular project. So we have like 10 promoters. Also we have youth women, like not most, like one youth women, and then one elderly person called Belloma. So one learning for me is like to have a women collective where there is like an intergenerational knowledge share. So basically when you have these meetings, when women groups, women promoters come together, we have this session where Belloma, like a village elder, talking to Prema, who is a youth indigenous woman, on what are the medicinal plants that we can plant in a analog forestry plot, and how is it gonna help them, or like some of the traditional knowledge which Prema might not have. Prema is also an indigenous woman. She's from a youth background, but she might not have what Beloma is telling. And also like some other perspective of this would be getting women as a collective also helped us to get more people on board, because when we started doing the project, it was like just 10 women's coming together and planning, okay, we'll have this particular species of plant growing so that they'll get something out of the plot, and also they will have some market linkages. But then what we found is like, okay, in the beginning starting stages it was mostly women coming up, and then as the process, like as the process moved on, then we had like family members also coming into. And then when you're doing all these trainings, these, like there was like a huge amount of participation coming from youths, like even from all the members, and like people have started to use. The other objective also is like, coming from this protected area, there are like several issues related to land rights, which like a protected area will have some kind of these land rights where like they will not have the land title, and then there are like several other issues for them. So we also see this as a gender just solution, because when you get people together, when you have some issues, they are, like sometimes they are split up and then they are just running behind the task, and then they have to get money and then do all those things. But then being in this particular group help them to do some kind of advocacy. Maybe like for one example, it will be a small example where these 10 women promoters going to panchayat saying that, okay, we are doing this kind of a setup, and then is there any subsidy or is there any help that the panchayat can do. So this is like a starting process where they will interact with the officials and to get to know what they are doing, and also to understand what the officials are doing. So it was like a beginning stage that we have done. So when we asked the women promoters, they were like, so this is like a first time that we are going and meeting the promoters. And then when you ask them, how do you feel to be in this particular women collective, and then how do you like, it's like, they are all coming from different villages. It's like quite far, and then transportation is not very frequent, and then they won't meet that often, but then they all have these same particular issues. But then when you give this particular space where they could share what are the issues in that particular area, this is also like helping them to move forward as a collective. And then other challenges that we have encountered when we are doing this particular project will be, one is like we are interacting with indigenous people. Most of the youth depends on, like they are doing their education, they finish their masters, and then most of them are moving out from the village or from their particular space, where they see like, okay, whatever we are gonna learn or like do, there is no enough opportunities in this particular, like their area, and then most of them are moving out. So we feel this analog forestry is also gonna give an opportunity where they are also getting some income out of it. Like what analog forestry, like I'll just give an gist on the technical terms, because it will be like too much if I explain the whole part. So basically what we are doing is, before starting the analog forestry, we'll do this particular mapping, which is called current land use map and biophysical map, which is like to understand like at what area are you gonna implement this particular project, and which are the species that you are gonna include in this particular part. And during this current land use mapping only, you'll understand, okay, this particular land has slope, and then where does the water stays more, and which kind of species need more water, and all those discussion will happen in a group. And then like the other mapping is like a biophysical mapping, where it includes the direction of sun, wind, and the flow of water, which gives them an idea before planting a plan. So mostly whenever you see, when we are doing a cultivation, it's mostly like, okay, we are getting one sapling, we'll just put it off. But before planting, we'll also have some sessions where you think, okay, this is my plot, okay, sunlight is more this particular part, and then while planting a huge tree, let's think too much on which side of the plot should this particular species come. So these are the technical things, or like some principles that we follow before implementing the analog forestry network. So the other points that I would also want to share is, as I was telling, how the women collective, like the 10 promoters that we have chosen, is from a different age group. It's also what we see in them is like one of the promoter who's called 𝗀𝗍𝗶𝗹𝗹, who's from an Anagati village. She is an expert in bio inputs, like natural bio inputs. And then like whenever we have these meetings, she's also very, she's very interested to share all those knowledge. And like we feel that if this particular collective is very much interested in this, they also can take bio input as an income source. And then like moving people together is a challenge, but then we see all these loopholes where you could find them, you know uh, they have this particular knowledge, but then they're not coming together. That could be one of the challenge that we are also facing. In the beginning, when you start the journey having 10 promoters, it's like, okay, we are just doing it as in individual plots. Whenever in once in 2 months, we'll come together and we'll share things. It's like a space where you share individual experience. But then to like, to get the idea of, okay, it's like a collective, it took like some time for us to make them understand, okay, you are a collective, and then through this collective you can do all these things. And then future, we hope this group, I mean, we are just as I was mentioning, this is like a pilot project that we have started, and then mostly it's also the other element that we have added in this is the other element that we have added in this is monitoring the plot. So, monitoring, especially when you talk to farmers, it's like, like during our studies, we'll be doing monitoring. Like while doing an experiment, you will be doing the monitoring. But then in analog forestry, we also have this concept of monitoring, like different 4 variables, which are like soil, biodiversity, structure, and productivity. So in soil, it will be like mostly, do you see there is an increase in soil moisture, like do you see any change in soil color, or like do you see more insects coming in, earthworms coming in, like all those small things. And then in biodiversity, it's also like whatever we have planted, and then there are also other species which are coming up. So in biodiversity, we'll monitor which are the species which are coming in, both in plants and in bird species, flora and fauna. And then the third variable is structure. So the main concept of analog forestry is to mimic the forest by its structure, right? So how far has our plot is, like how far it has gone to the forest structure is what we are monitoring in the structure. So it will be like, okay, for this 3 months, it's like mostly like an agricultural plot, and like after 2 or 3 years, what has the plot has changed. That's the third variable. And the last variable is productivity, in which productivity can be like a two things, where productivity, one of the productivity will be, okay, am I getting anything out of the plot which is useful for my particular, like for subsistence. And then the other part will be, were you able to get something out of the plot to get, like, give or sell or get generate some income of that particular plot. So these are the learnings, or like these are the monitoring principles that we are following by implementing analog forestry. So I guess that's all. Do you, I mean, it's time up, no, Shruti?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Reshma, for staying within the time frame. We also have some questions for you. And for all the speakers who are actually here, it was incredible to hear also about this, because your particular example is also critical to understand that how restoration is and what are the challenges specifically from the point of view of protected area where rights are further curb, especially of communities, their rights to access, and it's even more impactful towards women. So some of these examples that you shared are critical to understand how communities are navigating, especially in protected areas, is when we have models of we have exclusionary conservation models. Even in the case of Tanzania, I know that there have been communities that have been pushed out of sanctuaries. So thank you so much for all of you for sharing. So we have a couple of questions. I am going to, do we also have Maria Sumina in this panel? Like, can we highlight her also? And then
Yes.
I can post the question.
Yes. Should you just go on posing the question? I'm asking Maria to turn the camera on.
Oh, okay, okay. There, we have Maria here. Yes. So we have our first question. I think it's for all of you. Is what has been the role of traditional knowledge in fostering gender equality for ecosystem restoration? Who wants to take first? Any one of you can take. And people, so um, Seno, Maria, do you want to respond to this? Which is what has been the role of traditional knowledge in fostering gender equality for ecosystem restoration? I know that you've shared that also within your presentation. So would you want to?
When it comes to, okay, Should I?
Yeah, we can go first you, then Maria,
Yeah.
and then Reshma if she wants to.
Oh.
Over to you, say no.
Oh, okay. Yeah. When it comes to indigenous ecological knowledge, women plays a very critical role, and because women are also knowledge holders. If it is something to do with modern science, maybe many women will not find a place. So when it comes to ecosystem restoration, and when the particular community or organization or movement, when they recognize women's voices, women's knowledge, that's where women are, women's knowledge are acknowledged, and women are part of any ecological initiatives. And if I look into my community, women are excluded in the decision making. And that's the challenge. And that's the challenge because we are out of the environment governance because of the decision making position. But once we start, like acknowledging and recognizing women's role in traditional knowledge, that's where, we can pave a way for women to come into the center stage. So I don't have a single, line, one shot of answer, but that's how I see it. So I pass to my other co-panelists.
Maria, over to you. And if you can
Yes,
speak a
thank you.
little slower for our interpreters.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
I think I'll start with an example of my grandmother. So my grandmother, she was potter. She used to make pots. Then I never understood. But whenever we will visit her, and she was living in a very dense forest. And there was a very clear stream water, I recall. I was very little, but I still recall that. And even passing through that stream of water, you have to remove your shoes, not because of traditionals or whatnot, but because it was water which is used by the community around that area. But even when she go to make her potter and pots, there's a way that she will not take clay from a certain part of land, and she'll collect clay from a certain side of land and pile it together. And whenever she finishes using that clay, she take it back to where it belongs. I was very young, but now with all this conversation about climate change, land restoration, I'm going back to what was happening then in my rural community. Equally to my grandfather, he migrated from wherever he was staying and he went to live in this new area. And despite of him cutting through a big part of land, still he left some natural trees, traditional trees, stand tall in that particular land. So about indigenous knowledge, and here if I have to talk about women themselves, there is that nature which is within women, which cannot be separated with the creation, if I have to use creation. And is the knowledge which, despite of the fact, is not acknowledged. It's only now that after all this much conversation and research is coming out vividly. But if they're given that opportunity to come out and to explain it and to showcase how it really works, I think it plays, not I think, I believe it plays a very big role of land restoration, not just in the areas that they are working in the specific maybe culture and traditions, but across regions, because it is intersectioning in very different ways. They could be different tribes, but they have almost the same models of preserving land and keeping the land really continue to the next generation. So I think women have that mindfulness. There's another generation which is coming after me, and I have to see if this land needs to be kept. Yeah.
Thank you, Maria. I think those are very, very powerful. And it's also so many things that our grandmothers and mothers did when we were growing up, which didn't make sense, are starting to make sense now. And we realize some of these knowledge are very critical and things that we then take with ourselves. And it's always and often women who carry this knowledge system from one generation to another. I will have another question for Reshma from someone who is asked, what tools do you use for land mapping, the land mapping that you shared?
So it's like tools, matlab, I mean, tools, we don't use specific tools, but it's like mostly we'll show them the current land use map and then like how it could be. And it's mostly elder people who are doing it in chart and then, like sheets where they'll see how their plot is looking like and then they'll just map it on the chart and then we'll document that particular sheet. That's how we use. We don't use GIS or like other technologies to do the mapping.
Thank you, Reshma. We also have one more question, and then I'm going to wrap it up. Someone asked that we have now realized a lot of indigenous people's customary knowledge and practices are getting lost due to various reasons. What is there any efforts made to revitalize such knowledge, and what has been your experience and outcomes towards that, to revitalize and bring and preserve some of these knowledge systems that are slowly at the threat of being lost? Anyone wants to start? Maybe Maria, and then who wants to
Yeah,
go?
thank you. So from a personal level, for me, first of all, I look at it into the term civilization, the way we qualify civilization, that really kick us out of the conversation around the indigenous knowledge, because I always sometimes ask civilization to who and to what kind of civilization. But also when we term development, the way we coin development as well, really push away some conversations around indigenous knowledge, skills, and all that which has been done. Well, the beauty of it is now we see some very crucial moments from indigenous community really demanding, not even requesting, demanding to preserve the knowledge, really coming forward to see in a conversation such as COPs, Conference of Parties, both on biodiversity, climate change, the one for the drought. How is it really speaking about their rights, their nature, their connectivity with nature? And I think the space which has been accorded to indigenous community, and I'm glad to see the way it is happening, is not indigenous community who are speaking from a textbook. This indigenous community who are speaking from the textbook of the heart. They know what they're talking about. They know where they're coming from. And they know what is in stake for them if that is lost. So maybe the part that needs to be done is now to interlink that commitment where indigenous people themselves have decided to hold it, and now combine that with the knowledge which we believe is a civilized knowledge, and that is documenting this information and really commenting and pushing for the conversation going forward and not working in silos. Because I think the other thing which really push the agenda further is if silos really cut across different indigenous community, but seeing indigenous people from different parts of the world speaking the same language, to me that is very powerful and really need to be commendable and be supported.
Absolutely, and that is a very, very important aspect of the fact that now it's no longer about like recognition, it's more about assertions of rights, and communities are starting to take and be in those spaces and assert it. And it's no longer about asking the governments or anything about recognition. It's no longer about recognition. It's more about them asserting being in those spaces. That's very, very critical, Maria. Thanks for bringing it up. Is there anyone else? Senu, Reshma, do you want to add to this? So you have 2 minutes and then we will wrap up.
The intergenerational knowledge transfer is important. As we assert our right, as we also, start reviving, ecological agriculture, start reviving the cultural space that we have, it's important that we transfer the knowledge to the younger generations, and that needs to start immediately.
Absolutely. Thanks, Seno. Rishma, do you want to add? Okay. So thank you so much for the wonderful panelists. It was wonderful to have listened to all of you, and we hope that this conversation goes forward. I'm sorry, there are a lot of questions that have been there which we weren't able to address. But we will, with your permission, include, if you are okay with, include your details if need be, or you can, whoever wants to continue this conversation can write to us and we will facilitate a conversation to carry this forward. If possible, can all of you also switch on your cameras so that we can take a group picture, and Sumina is going to facilitate that. Sumina, tell us when you want us to, if you...
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the speakers for that great webinar. If Maria could look at the camera, and Seno, if you could also turn on your camera again. I just need to take one picture. Okay, smile. Thank you. All right, now with everybody. Just a second. Oh, lovely. Just a second. 1, 2, and 3. Smile, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you've had a wonderful time learning from all this incredible work that's been happening. But before we end, I would like to take a special shout out to the interpreters who've been here, ensuring language justice and ensuring that all of this is accessible to as many people across the world possible. And it's only possible with the wonderful interpretation team. Thank you all for being here, and I hope you join us the next last Friday of next month. Until then, I hope all of you have a wonderful day. Look forward to talking to you soon. All right. See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.